Hello! Today we're going to be doing section 3.4 from our textbook, which involves dividing fractions and using the multiplicative inverse. So first we're going to do some vocabulary, then we're going to do some dividing fractions, and then we're going to do some dividing fractions with variables. So first, a multiplicative inverse is also known as the reciprocal, and the reciprocal is two numbers whose product is 1. Okay, so first of all, you need to know that product means multiplication. So we're multiplying two numbers and we get 1 is what multiplicative inverse means. For example, I have 1 1/2 times 2/3, and I'm telling you that equals 1. I'm going to prove it to you. Nope. Let's see. 1 1/2 means 3/2 times 2/3. And when you multiply these, you can actually cancel out. The 2 and the 2 can become 1 and 1. And the 3 and the 3 can cancel out and become 1 and 1. So everything cancels each other out and you get 1. Now probably you learned something like reciprocal, you just flip it, but it won't always be the case because sometimes you're going to have mixed numbers. Okay, but when you multiply the two numbers, you should get 1. So looking at some examples, if I ask you to find the reciprocal, well, if I just give you a fraction, a plain fraction, all you have to do is just invert it, flip it, and you could say that's 7/6, or you could say 1 1/6. Either answer is fine, because those two are equal, are the multiplicative inverse or the reciprocal. This, first you need to make it improper. 15, 16, 17/5, and that's negative. To take its reciprocal, I'm going to flip this over. So the reciprocal is going to be 5/17. Now I want you to think about that for a second. I'm supposed to multiply these two numbers and it's supposed to give me 1. If I do a negative number times a positive number, that's going to give me -1. So you actually have to keep the negative sign when you're doing the reciprocal. Okay, because a negative times a negative will give you +1. Alright, so let's do some examples with dividing. Part 1, dividing numerical fractions. To divide fractions, that means you're going to see numbers only. I'm going to do some with variables in a minute. You keep the first number and you multiply by the reciprocal of the second number. Write these down. This is the steps for dividing fractions. Okay, so example 1, 4/5 divided by 3/10. You're going to change it to 4/5 times 10/3. Then you're going to simplify. That's all I can cross out. 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 3 is 3. You can leave it as 8/3. I'm fine with 8/3. You can't simplify that anymore. If you want to, you can make it a mixed number. 2 and 2/3. But a lot of times mathematicians leave the things improper, leave the fractions improper. It's just easier to work with later on down the road than a mixed number. Okay? All right, let's do a few more numerical ones. 5/6 divided by 3. So keep the first fraction, 5/6. Change it to multiplication. Take the reciprocal. This is also known as 3/1. So reciprocal means 1/3. I can't cancel anything on the top with anything on the bottom. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 times 3 is 18. Done. Okay, now I have some mixed numbers. Before you can do anything, you need to make them improper. You're going to put yourself a star. You need to make them a fraction, not a mixed number. This is also known as 14/3. Divided by, this would be 27/28/9. And it's negative. So keep the first number. 14/3 times, flip this, 9/28, and put the negative in. Cancel things out. I can cancel out a 14 and a 28 because I know that 14 times 2 is 28. So cancel this out, becomes a 1, that becomes a 2. 3 and 9 I can cancel out, 1 and 3. Now, I would be careful. Notice you're doing a positive and a negative here, and you're going to get a negative answer there. So don't forget that negative sign. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. So my answer is -3/2. Okay, now let's 2, dividing algebraic fractions. Algebraic fractions means you're going to see variables in them. You're going to do the same exact steps we just did with the numerical ones, but you might be able to cancel out some variables. So, I have 5x over 8y. Keep the first fraction. Change it to multiplication. Flip the second fraction, 16y over 10. Okay, keep the first fraction, multiplication, flip the second fraction. See if you can cancel anything out. Anything in the numerator can cancel out with anything in the denominator. A y and a y they cancel each other out, they become 1. 5 and 10 become 1 and 2. 8 and 16 become 1 and 2. 2 and 2 become 1 and 1. Look at all this canceling out. There's a lot going on. We're canceling a lot of things out. I'm left with on the top 1 times x times 1 times 1. So I'm left with x. Don't write 1x. On the bottom, I'm left with 1 times 1. Don't write over 1 because that's not in simplest form. We leave it as x. Done. One more, and then that's it for today. Make some more room to pull it up. Okay, this problem. Negative 2x over y. Keep the first fraction, change it to multiplication, flip the second fraction, y over 4. The two y's can cancel each other out. Y and y become 1 and 1. The 4 and the 2 can cancel each other out, become 2. And this will be a negative 1, so I'll just put a 1 there. Don't forget about that negative, though. On the top, I have a negative, a 1x, and a 1. Negative x. Don't write negative 1x. Just negative x over 1 times 2, 2. Okay. Please remind me, I'll try to remember, but I would like to go over other ways of what this means. Okay, this is something to look at, something to know. But I want you to go over what that means. Other than that,